Start streaming.
Got blurry.
You ready?
Good. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Parker. This is Kristen Ishihara with the Ishihara and Parker Law Firm here in Longview, Texas.
Happy New Year.
That's right. Happy New Year. And we have a new topic, which is New Year. What is it? What are you doing today?
New year, new you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Top three things we need to get done.
We jumped on the bandwagon.
Yep.
Yes. 3 things that we're going to suggest you do really every year would be appropriate. This is just good practical advice. But since a lot of us are thinking about like taking care of business, doing the things in the new year, you've got your list, your goals. This is a good time to add some estate planning tips on there.
Yep. Every year, write it down, follow through with it. All right. Number one, easiest thing to do. You don't want to do it, but you really need to do it is?
Review your current estate plan. So people ask all the time, how often do we need to review this? You probably don't need a legal review with a lawyer unless 5 years or more has gone by. However, it is good practical advice for you. And I say just do this at tax time because everyone's thinking about your legal requirements, things I got to get done. But you do need to pull out all your documents, make sure you know where the originals are, and then check and make sure your agents are current. Did somebody have a health issue that year? Did somebody pass away? Do I need to update these? Are there any changes I need to make? So just a personal review of your estate planning documents.
Yeah, there's so many times that people come in, they have a great plan, they're going to leave things to the 3 kids in equal shares, and that's a great plan. But, something happens over those 12 months. Maybe one of the children is no longer close with you. There's a falling out. And you take steps that are different than what's in the plan you've done. Things need to match. I see it all the time. People come in, I say, what do we got estate planning wise? They hand me their documents. I ask them what's going on in the real world. One says X, the other's Y. They don't make any sense. They don't match. And because at the time we had a great plan, circumstances changed, and they never went and saw the attorney. And that is an issue.
Right. And a lot of times people just, don't understand exactly what the documents say. So if you need help, of course, talk to the lawyer. But in there, make sure you understand how people are listed. So one and then another. A lot of times in thinking about it, people think, I put this person first and that person. And so just making sure that you have all those things. And remember, you need the originals.
Yep.
And just practically, we want to keep those in a safe spot that our agents can get to and know where they are. So don't move that every year. That needs to be the same spot. You'd be like my 13-year-old looking for his wallet. Put it in the same spot. When you come back to it next year, it'll be there. You know what it is. You know you have the originals. You've told your agents that it's there. No surprises, and you're sure that you're ready. If something happened and you needed your agents to step in or you passed away in 2025, everything you had was correctly done. You've provided for them in the best way that you can by having those things in place and easy for them to get to.
Yep. Changes are fine, but they got to be reflected in the documents, and that is just a very confusing thing for people when you pass away. If your plan says X and reality is Y, there's going to be a mess.
Sure. Also important, just as a side note, to review those anytime a life change happens. So if your spouse or a child passes away, you need to review those documents. Even a major health issue for a spouse or a child probably means you need to review those documents. There may be nothing that needs new in place, but even as you think about your agents, if a spouse has a health issue, well, maybe they don't need to be your primary agent now because you're caregiving for them. So it impacts different people in different ways, but it does usually mean that you need to sit down with a professional and review those things.
Yep. Okay. Other things we need to do is, of course, review ownership of different documents or assets. Like, for example, you're working on your taxes. You get your nice letter from the appraisal district letting you know what you owe, and you're reading through it, and suddenly you realize the name on the house isn't your name. It's your mother's who passed away and left you the house. Now, can that be an issue?
Absolutely. So This is a good time because it is both income tax ending and also property tax time to pay. Yes, that's a reminder to go pay your property taxes if you haven't already. But both of those things are sending you things in the mail right now. So you are getting any 1099s that are paying you interest. That means you own something. So a lot of folks aren't super familiar with what they own. So if you've gotten a 1099 from some stocks that maybe you bought or maybe your parents bought and you don't really know what it is, if you are receiving an annual statement from something, you need to know what it is, you need to know how it's owned, and make sure that you understand the ownership of the asset. Chris's point about real property is also super duper important. A lot of times folks assume that they know how real property will transition. So grandma owned a house. Well, I now live there. Yep. It's my house. Well, did your property tax bill say that you own the house? Is the ownership correctly documented on there?
And it matters. It matters. I've had situations where they come in and they're living in their mother's or grandmother's house. No one let the appraisal district know. It's still in that deceased parent or grandparent's name. The same property exemptions that apply for grandparents have still applied all the way through. And of course, the kids are like, well, we don't want to change that. And I hate to deliver bad news. Oh, the appraisal district will find out and they will come looking. Unfortunately, these things happen. And you can nip in the bud while it's a small problem. When you go to sell that property and the title company gets involved, it'll be a big problem.
Right. So the biggest ownership issues that we see are typically either someone passed away and owned the real property and the chain of title hasn't been established, but also the original acquisition of property sometimes is done. Maybe someone had trouble getting a note in their name, so they added somebody. They added a parent, they added a sibling, they added a cousin, just so they could get the documents done. When someone co-signs for you on a real property note or mortgage, their name is going to be on the deed. A lot of times people don't understand that. Well, I bought the property. I'm the only one paying the note. They just co-sign for me. No. With real property, they will be an owner on the deed. That's how the bank would foreclose on it. So if you've paid that off, if you're able to refinance, anything that you should be owning in 100% your name, you need to get cleaned up. Now is the time, not after you've passed away, not after that co-owner has passed away. That is something to handle now.
Yep, because that ownership interest will pass through the person's name on there. I mean, not what you expect. We've seen that happen a bunch of times.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about chain of title for deceased individuals?
What do you mean? Tell me more.
So grandma died.
Oh, so if grandma passes away, what do I need to do, right? It's, so a loved one passes away, it doesn't automatically just go to me. Hopefully, grandmother had a will. You go see the attorney of your choice. You have a discussion. Hey, my grandmother passed away. I am the grandson. She left me everything, bypassing my mom, who was the only child, because mom was in the nursing home or something like that. Does that will need to be probated? Yes, absolutely. Because remember, your grandmother has a will, which means she has changed what will happen under the laws of Texas. A failure to probate that will, a failure to have at least considered to talk about it, means the rules of intestate succession would take over, and Texas would write what would happen. And Texas law is probably very different than what you would expect. If we're dealing with a blended family, we're dealing with any complications, the assets do not go where you think they're going to go, and that can be a real nightmare scenario. When a loved one passes away, you've got to make the decision, bring that will, which hopefully is done, or have that trust, which hopefully is funded, and make sure the right steps are taken. If you just let it go, which happens to us all the time, there's gonna be some real problems. I've had some really great wills that weren't able to be used over the past 4 years, or some requirements that weren't met, and everyone thought they knew with a plan, and then it got rewritten, not by choice, but by Texas law.
Sure, and it's important for you to know, right? Because you're paying the property taxes, you're paying the maintenance, you're paying the insurance. So if there is ownership that is not 100% yours, I want you to at least know that information so you can make an informed decision. But we call it chain of title. So anytime someone owns a piece of property and they pass away, you need to add a link to the chain to connect it down to you. So if grandma originally bought the house, let's just say as a single person, and she died with 4 kids, she either had a will that was probated, and that gets filed in the deed records, and that transitions the house to whoever the will left it to, or Texas law wrote the will for grandma. It would then belong to her 4 biological kids, or however many of them are surviving, including maybe grandkids, if there's some other descendants. You see how that gets real tricky. But then if there is no will, chain of title is then established through affidavits of heirship signed by 2 disinterested witnesses. Often title companies help assist with that. That is often caught when someone goes to sell the house, but it is still how you establish the chain of title. So either in ownership transfers, it needs a probated will, or it needs affidavits of heirship, or you've not correctly established that chain of title to show who owns the house. And that's often people's most significant asset, so it is worth the time and effort to get that done correctly. New year, new you, good time to consider making sure that I individually own all the real property that I think I own and I'm putting investment into. And 2, all those 1099s coming to you have a meaning, figure out what it is. And remember to apply this to your parents too, because this is often where those extra 1099s are maybe life insurance or some old stocks, and they're not interested in figuring it out. But if you are their financial power of attorney, you can step in and get that done now, and is probably really advisable to get done.
Absolutely. Making sure those beneficiaries are done in those small little accounts out there could save you a bunch of money down the line.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to number 3. Number 3 for me, this is, again, Chris and I are just trying to give you some practical advice. Some of this is really just for you to know because it's mistakes that we've seen be made and we want to help you do better. Number 3 is consolidate. So if you are that person, or if your parents or other members of your family are those people that are getting 15 1099s and not sure what those are, could be all sorts of different things. Maybe you have a 401k that you rolled to this place, but you have an IRA from a prior job that's this place. Think about, we want to make it as easy as possible for the agents, the people that step in if you're incapacitated, the people that are your beneficiaries and your loved ones at your death. We can make their life easier if we do some consolidation during your lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so many people come in and they are here, there, everywhere. And by the time they write down their list of assets, they're at 15 different banks, 3 different institutions, a couple credit unions. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, no. If you can find a way to find someone you trust, or at least someone's, and make that circle smaller, you will really be doing your family a favor. They have no interest in going to 6 or 7 different banks, talking to multiple investment advisors, tracking down multiple life insurance agents. In my opinion, if you can narrow it down to 1, 2, preferably spots, you would really, really help your family out. No one's going to have excess time to track all of this down.
Sure.
And it happens a lot. We see a lot of folks who have moved here, moved there, switch houses, and they, I was at this bank and now I went over here, but I left the old accounts, and they multiply like gremlins. They're just everywhere, and that can be a huge pain.
Yeah, and this is just a good time to make that list and go through it. And if you don't want to go through it, maybe offer the option to your financial power of attorney, because it's either now or it's at your death. So give them the option to step in and help now. A lot of times those are life insurance that a door-to-door salesman sold you and you still have, but you don't remember where it came from, or computer share stocks. Those usually don't have beneficiaries. You purchased a small individual stock a long time ago. Now you're just letting it rock along, send $23 in dividends to you quarterly. Those are things to figure out. Maybe talk to a local financial advisor. They will actually help you consolidate those things. Takes a little load off of you, but you find the person, you tell them what you want them to bring in. They will, because they're getting paid now as your financial advisor. They will help you bring those things in, and you can bring your daughter or your son to meet with them. Now know who they can go to individually. You can make their life a whole lot easier by doing that work now.
We've seen a couple times where you have a married couple and one person does a lot of the finance. Well, that person has the medical emergency. The spouse at home, who's not really involved in the finances, isn't savvy, isn't really sure where all these pieces are. I've seen or heard of multiple situations where the spouse at home isn't getting absolutely no help from these large corporations, and it really did take someone local had to come in to help that spouse out, had to gather the assets, had to put it in one spot so they could start making their payments and help them out. They had assets, just no one could access them.
Yeah, and sometimes folks open multiple bank accounts because they're worried about the bank security and FDIC limits. Those are things you can talk to a professional about. So if, for example, me and my husband own a bank account, we each individually have that $250 limit. So we get $500 on that account. If you have beneficiaries, that adds an additional per person. So you may well be fine within the limits depending upon how your accounts are set up. But get some professional advice on that if that is the reason you have 85 banks. It may not be necessary. It may be something that you could avoid and still have that protection that you're after. But yes, consolidating and then introducing those folks to both your plan and your agents. So if I'm consolidating, I'm hopefully going to have 1 or 2 local-ish banks where I know somebody. So if I walk in there, I know who to talk to, and I can introduce those people to my power of attorney agent as well as my beneficiaries. If I've done that with a financial advisor, I've consolidated. I can bring in my kids to meet with them. They're often going through their list of annually meeting with people too to set the year, review last year. So it's just a good time now that we're all thinking about what to do in the new year to get these things done as well.
And I can't tell you how many times over the years that we've gotten a call from a financial advisor or local bank saying, hey, Chris, we have your client, Miss Smith, down here, and she's with someone we don't know, and they want to do things that we're uncomfortable with. Do you have any knowledge of this? And I'll be like, that's interesting. Let's look at our notes. And suddenly when that person's name doesn't show up, we're thinking, hey, maybe we give the power of attorney a call. Maybe we look at the trusted contact for the financial firm to find out who you put as a backup. There's been multiple times where, I hate to say it, but a scam artist got hold of a loved one and has taken them to a local bank or local institution, local advisor, and the local advisor and the banks have said, let's just pause for about 5 minutes. And that 5 minutes has been pretty helpful. So give the local folks a chance to help out. And they can do that if they know who you are and who your agent is. Someone else shows up, it's a red flag.
Yep. But a good time just to review your current plan and make sure no changes are needed, to review ownership of assets, and also to consolidate as necessary any of those assets and make sure that your plan will run smoothly. So this is the time of year to be talking to all your professionals, right? Your CPA, your financial advisor, your lawyer. All of those people can help you put those plans in place and even give you kind of a to-do list. I often send people out what they hear is your homework list. These are the things you need to accomplish, but I know resolutions run fast, so maybe get this done. Was it by February?
Yeah.
Whenever people are done with resolutions, do this before then. But anyway, is that all we got?
That's it.
All right. Happy New Year. We'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all. Slouching